If you are a collector of just about anything, you've probably heard about the upside down Jenny or the inverted Jenny stamp. It was an heir of a block of 100 stamps, and one of these stamps has sold for over $2 million. You heard me right, that's $2 million, not won, to clarify for those fans of Squid Game. I'd trade a pretty good yo-yo for one of those stamps. Now, if you are a coin collector, you've probably heard of the 1943 Lincoln cent that was made out of copper. These pennies were made in 1943, all out of steel, but a very few slipped through that were copper, and only about 40 are known to exist. So one of those has sold for over $800,000. And I had thought I'd found one once as a kid, and as I was busy picking out what my first Lamborghini was going to be when I sold it, a magnet proved me wrong. Turns out electroplating 1943 steel pennies with copper is not uncommon as a novelty item, but it sure is a dream buster for a 16-year-old kid coming home with his valuable flea market find. So, there can be mucho dinero in heirs in collectors. Now, obviously, there are tens or hundreds of thousands of stamp collectors and coin collectors compared to hundreds of yo-yo collectors. But are there still some holy grail heirs in yo-yos that may be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars if you recognize them? And how does one tell whether an heir on a yo-yo increases the value or decreases the value? And I'm going to go into a deep dive on this subject, and hopefully you'll find some yo-yo gold in your collection that you didn't even realize was there. Or maybe it'll be your next flea market find. Okay, here we go. Let's take a look at this yo-yo. What don't you see? Well, this is a Duncan yo-yo that is missing its seal. This is a type of heir that is only useful as far as a collectible when it's in an original poly bag and on the original card. But this is clearly a Duncan yo-yo, and you can see on the other side here, there is no seal. So this has a little bit of curiosity value. I probably wouldn't value this much more than a stamped yo-yo on card with the appropriate seal. And those go for, $20 to up to $35. Now, if this yo-yo is loose and not on the card, I would consider it to be an NWP, not worth the postage. Now, here's one that we don't know whether this is an heir or if it was just a very limited run. This is a Cross Flags tournament on the card. This was made in the early 60s by Duncan. But you will notice that it has a glitter paint surface. Now, glitter paint surfaces on cross flag tournaments are very rare. Glitter paint was typically used on all the wooden butterfly yo-yos of that era, and it is especially found on all the Satellite Series yo-yos, as you can see here. The glitter, I believe, was trying to represent stars in deep space. Glitter is also known as the herpes of the craft world, as you find it everywhere and it gets into everything. Anyway, this Cross Flags glitter paint yo-yo would highly increase its value. Normally these would sell in maybe the $30 to $45 mint in package. This would bring well over $100 mint in package. Now here's another glitter finish yo-yo. And again, I don't know if this was a intentional or a mistake, but this was a Chevron Imperial, again, with the original Duncan Yo-Yo Company pre-1965. And again, I would expect this to double or triple the value, and I have yet to see one of these mint in package, which I would suggest would bring well over $100 at auction. Now, I had mentioned that the Satellite Series had glitter paint, but there is one exception on that Satellite Series. There are a few Sonic satellites out there that have no glitter paint, but they are a metallic finish. As you can see here, this is what a standard finish would look like with the glitter on the Sonic satellite. Again, these metallic satellites, mint in package, would carry a higher value than the glitter bearing screaming Sonic satellite. Plus, you can have intimate physical contact without having to worry about getting glitter on you. All right, so let's take a look at this yo-yo, and this is obviously a Duncan Super with a registration mark. So this was the second series of Duncan Super yo-yos made in the 50s and possibly into the early 60s. But there is something missing. What is it? Well, it is missing the quintessential paint stripe that all these Duncan yo-yos had. Very rare and worth double or triple the value of a striped Super, which would be probably anywhere from $40 to $100 depending on the condition. However, there is a reproduction Super that has no stripe as well, so don't be faked out with that one. However, this one is the real deal and cool to have as part of your collection. I wouldn't trade my little brother for one, but perhaps my sister. Now, here's a good example of an error imprint that is very collectible. This is a double stamp seal on a Duncan Cross Flags yo-yo. Those were made in the early 60s. Very neat to display and talk about. This would happen when the yo-yo got stuck in the stamping thing and it just got a double stamp. So that didn't happen very often. I would consider this to be about double or maybe even triple the value of a standard Duncan yo-yo. So probably in the $30 to $50 range, also depending on the condition, it could be even more. If I ever get a tattoo, it will be of a Duncan double stamp Cross Flags tournament seal. Now, you may ask, what is better than a double stamp seal? Well, it is this yo-yo here. This is a double stamp fleur-de-lis Duncan from the early 70s. Oh, no, wait a minute. This is, probably early 70s, but it is a 180 double stamp seal, meaning that it double stamped, but the yo-yo completely reversed around 180 degrees and got another stamp. And so you can't get much cooler than that. Is it the equivalent of an inverted Jenny's that stamp collectors covet? Well, probably not. But it would probably bring over $100 at auction. However, we really haven't gotten into the really good stuff yet. Now, I'm stringing you along, I know. I probably will be talking about those airs that worth hundreds or thousands of dollars near the end, but don't fast forward, and you can't if you're watching live anyway. So just hang in there. Now, here's an unusual yo-yo that has to do with the color. This is a Neo yo-yo by color, but Duncan discontinued Neo yo-yos. But this is a Neo yo-yo with an imperial seal. It's very rare to find, and it would certainly be a lot more impressive on the card, but they're hard to find any way you can get them. Now, I want you to take a really close look at this 1950s Duncan yo-yo. This is a yellow seal Duncan man without the pedestal. Please notice the words genuine, the word tournament, and the number 77 that are all in red. Now, let's take a look at this yo-yo. Now, this one you just saw was from the 1950s. This is the same seal, but notice the number is black, not red. Is this an error that has some extra value? No, this is a fake yo-yo. This seal was made and placed on a royal yo-yo blank. Not only would this not carry extra value, it would be devalued because this would be considered a fake yo-yo meant to deceive collectors. You can also notice the registration mark is a little bit larger on the fake one than on the original yo-yo. And you may also notice there is no crazing on the seal. That's how you know I'm an original yo-yo collector, because I have a lot of crazing on my face. My preferred word over wrinkles. Okay, what about this one? Is this a fake or is this an error? Or was it supposed to be like it is right now? This is a royal yo-yo with a Chico Super Deluxe decal. It's been placed over the Royal logo, which is perfectly fine because Joe Radovan, who was the owner of Royal Yo-Yos, also produced Chico Yo-Yos. His nickname was Chico. And he applied these decal Chico seals over Royal Yo-Yos all the time. So you will find Chico seals on these Royal Yo-Yos. It's not an error. It's also not a fake, but it's certainly collectible. Now, here's a Duncan seal over a Duncan yo-yo, which I do not understand. This was not an error. It was probably done in the field by a demonstrator, probably a request of some kid at a local tournament that had a really hot mom, and the demonstrator will comply by putting a little decal on his yo-yo. And this is one of the Duncan's earliest plastic yo-yos from the 50s. It is the Big G Deluxe Tournament yo-yo. The yo-yo demonstrator carried around these rolls of seals so they can put the seal over non-Duncan brand yo-yos so kids could enter contests which were restricted to Duncan yo-yos. But I have no idea why they would put a seal over their own yo-yo. And here's another example of that with a Yo-Yo Man seal being placed over a Duncan Super. It's possible in this case that they used the seal because they were really into getting their registration mark out because of the trademark stuff going on back then. And the early Supers did not have that registered trademark, whereas the decal did, but I may be completely wrong. It may just be a kid having one in the seal on his yo-yo, so who knows. Now, what about packaging errors? Now, here's a German Duncan Dinosaur series yo-yo from, I think it's maybe the late 80s. It could have been earlier, I'm not sure. So the wrong dinosaur is in the wrong container. Probably not much increase in value here because actually both these containers and the yo-yo are pretty collectible, and it sells in the $40 to probably $70 range. And you could only get these in Europe. They only released them there, and I think it's a real cool series, but very hard to get a hold of. Now, here are a couple of yo-yos that are on the wrong card. Now, I don't know if these were placed post-production or not, but these all-American yo-yos that are not original yo-yos that go in here. There was a different here's one labeled Silver Streak, which is obviously not the Silver Streak. This is what the original Silver Streak looked like. This, in my mind, devalues the yo-yo, and especially when it's intentionally placed on the wrong card. And sometimes you'll find on eBay, sellers, post-production, will take a card apart and put another yo-yo in to make it look like that yo-yo's meant in package, and it's not, and I consider that to completely devalue the yo-yo. Now, here's an example of a yo-yo on the wrong card that might slightly increase the value because it is an error. This is a box of Disney yo-yos. This was made by Festival in the early 70s. They had the licensing right for the Disney yo-yos during that period of time. As you can see in this box, these yo-yos corresponded to the figure that was on the yo-yo. But occasionally there would be mix-ups in the packaging and you would get the wrong character on the card. I don't think it increases the value that much. These yo-yos typically sell in the $15 to $30 range in package, so I don't think you should pay much of a premium for the wrong Disney character if it's on a Disney card. Now, if you're saying, when are we going to get to the really valuable ones so I can retire early? Okay, we're almost there. I'm going to show you one more error, and then we'll get to the holy grail of yo-yo errors. This is a typographical error. If you look closely at this yo-yo, it is a long spin yo-yo, obviously produced elsewhere. And this yo-yo grows in dark. Now, this yo-yo is special to me because it was my first air yo-yo that I got in my collection. Now, I believe they were trying to say it glows in the dark. However, if you take a yo-yo like this into a very dark room, which you will see here, I just want to say, if you look at those little things, that's not glowing. Those are just reflections off of little lights that are right there. It is pitch black. When it is away from those lights, it is like being in Mammoth Cave with the lights turned off. There is no glow, there is no light at all. So if you hear me referring to a yo-yo as a growed yo-yo, that means it is a yo-yo that is supposed to glow, that does not, or has a pathetically weak glow. So growed. You heard it here first on Yo-Yo Talk. Okay, now on to the inverted Ginnies of the yo-yo world. Will these someday sell for over $1 million each? Well, I'm sure my estate hopes so someday. But in my mind, the holy grail of yo-yos, as far as air yo-yos, are the reverse Tom Kuhn No Jive yo-yos. The laser that created these yo-yos was accidentally reversed, so a reverse image appears on each of these yo-yos. If you look at one of these yo-yos in the mirror, the seal will appear normal, and there were only 4 of these reverse types made. There were 3 no jives, and then the grand poopah of them all is the reversed flying camel. Kind of similar to that inverted Ginny, if you can make that comparison. So anyway, I believe that if there's any equivalent to the inverted flying Ginny in the yo-yo world, it is the Tom Kuhn reverse flying camel. Rare Tom Kuhn yo-yos can sell for thousands of dollars. I have never seen one of these reverses go on sale on eBay or anywhere else. I can only imagine they would all be over $1,000 at auction. And who knows what value of the reversed flying camel is, but it's probably worth more than getting a supermodel girlfriend in a trade. So if I were you, I would go check my Tom Kuhn yo-yos and look at the seals very closely, because it might be sitting right there in front of your eyes and you're not realizing you even have one of the holy grails of yo-yo collecting. I do happen to have one for trade. If you happen to have a 2025 Lamborghini sitting around in your garage that needs a new good home.